Yes, it's time for another You Asked For It. This is where I respond to your comments by putting together some kind of comparison review. This time it's between the LDV T60, the GWM Cannon, and the SsangYong Musso utes. About a month ago, we got a comment on the SsangYong Musso review from GRVMPS. It says, I know it's not perfect, but I can't afford a D-Max or Ranger, so it's this, referring to the SsangYong Musso. The LDV T60 or the GWM Cannon are really the only options if I want new. So basically they're saying that, you know, the Ranger and the D-Max and all that, the Hilux are too expensive these days, so he needs to revert to a more budget-focused model. For this comparison, I'm going to apply a very basic point scoring system. It's actually inspired by the early episodes of Top Gear, where you basically give 3 points to the winner, 2 points for the runner-up, and then 1 point for the loser. In this case, there's only three vehicles, and then just see what sort of points we get at the end. I haven't actually added it up. I'm going to kind of do it in real time. So I'm just adjusting the light because we've got some clouds outside, but then there's all sun coming through and it's beaming right into the window. So I'm just still trying to figure out this setup to get the lighting right, but that's looking a little bit dark on my face. But anyway, you don't want to look at my face. You want to hear about these facts and figures and look at the vehicles. I've included 6 main criteria: price, engine and performance, efficiency and power efficiency, which I'll explain later, towing and the GCM and payload left over, features, interior presentation, and the driving feel. All of the facts and figures I use Redbook. Redbook is just a website in Australia. There's numerous other websites out there that do the same thing. It's basically just all of the new models that are on sale at the moment with all their facts and everything. It does get it wrong sometimes, I've noticed, particularly with features and even the fuel type. So a petrol vehicle, you know, might say 95 RON when really it needs 98. So if there is any errors here, please let me know in the comments. I'll pin any sort of adjustments to the top of the comments so people can get a fair understanding. Starting with the price, GWM offers 9 variants of the Cannon. I'm excluding the big Alpha, it's just the standard Cannon models. And they start from $35,990 drive away. That's for a rear-wheel drive auto. There is no manual available. The LDV is offered in 8 variants. It starts from $41,042 drive away, and that's for a 4x4 manual. Then the Musso is offered in 8 variants as well. It starts from $40,000 exactly drive away, and that's for a 4x4 auto. The scores, I've given 3 to the Musso because it's an automatic and it's 4x4 as standard, even though it is priced a bit higher than the GWM. 2 to the GWM because it is the lowest price, even though it is only rear-wheel drive. And then 1 for the LDV because it is the most expensive out there and it's manual. Nobody wants a manual these days. Although I do, but you know, nobody buys a manual these days. The auto is $43,148 drive away, which is pretty expensive out of these 3 for an automatic 4x4. Next up, engine performance. Starting with the GWM again, so I'm just going in alphabetical order with these. It comes with a 2-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder producing 120 kilowatts and 400 newton meters. And it has a 0 to 100 time that I've tested in 11.07 seconds for the sort of mid-level variant. The LDV also comes with a 2-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder, but it produces 160 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, and its 0 to 100 time that I've tested is 10.09 seconds. The Musso comes with a 2.2-litre engine, so it's a slightly bigger capacity, turbo diesel 4-cylinder, 133 kilowatts and 400 newton meters, and I've timed 0 to 100 in 10.39 seconds in the long wheelbase version. So you might even be able to get it slightly quicker in the short wheelbase model. The scores, I've given 3 to the LDV because it is the most powerful and the quickest. So pretty simple. The Musso 2 because it's the second quickest, and then GWM 1 because it has the least power and is the slowest. By the way, I'm looking at the entry model 4x4 automatic for all of the rest of these scores. If you go start working up through the ranking of the variants, you'll get more features and so on. But I thought these are budget focused utes, so why not start with the most affordable versions? I'm going to exclude the manuals and the rear wheel drive. But yeah, just starting with the base model 4x4 automatics. Next up, efficiency and something what I like to call power efficiency. So basically, this is a little score or ratio that I've come up with back with the old website days, where you get the power and divide it by the official litres per 100 kilometres. And it kind of gives you an idea of just how efficient, I don't mean efficient in the sort of the general sense of what everyone thinks efficient kind of relates to, and just being green and using not much fuel. I mean efficient as in using every speck of fuel that it has. So it spits out a kind of weird ratio or calculation, but the figures are the main thing you want to look at. So the GWM is rated at, again, in automatic 4x4 form, base model, or the lowest model possible with that configuration, is rated at 9.4 litres per 100 kilometres with 120 kilowatts of power. So that gives a power efficiency ratio of 12.79 kilowatts per 1 litre per 100 kilometres. So you might as well say each 1 litre per 100 kilometres produces 12.79 kilowatts, basically. I'm also going to look at the official emissions rating too, because that is pretty important, especially if you're a fleet buyer or looking for a lease or something like that. They might have a maximum level of output for emissions. And the GWM is rated at 246 grams per kilometre. The LDV consumes 9.3 litres per 100 kilometres with 160 kilowatts. So that gives out a power efficiency rating of 17.2 kilowatts per litre per 100 kilometres. And its emissions output is 244 grams per kilometre. Then we have the Musso, which is rated at 8.6 litres per 100 kilometres with 133 kilowatts, power efficiency rating of 15.46 kilowatts per litre per 100 kilometres. And its emissions output is 226 grams per kilometre. So for the scores, I give the Musso 3 because it produces fewer emissions. It's 226 grams, so it's quite a lot less than the rest of them. It also passes Euro 6 emissions standards. The other two only pass Euro 5. And its power efficiency rating is pretty good, 15.46. It's not too much lower than the LDV, despite the LDV offering a lot more power. You'll notice in our reviews that we give a power efficiency rating. Anything above 20 is usually pretty good in my books for a non-hybrid. You can kind of do hybrids, but not plug-in hybrids, because the electric motor just adds too much power and then you don't have any fuel consumption to go off. So for a turbo or non-turbo, non-hybrid, anything above 20 is pretty good. Anything above 30 is excellent in my books. Like a Formula 1 car, that would be absolutely crazy power efficiency. They're using every speck of fuel in those things to extract power. In second place, we've got the LDV because it is the most power efficient out of the three, and it has a lower consumption rate than the GWM. So that leaves the GWM with 1 because it is the least efficient overall, officially at 9.4. It also produces the most emissions at 246. The GWM is definitely the least efficient, and I don't just mean in terms of green efficiency, it's the least sort of overall efficient, being the least powerful, yet producing the most emissions and having the highest fuel consumption. Obviously, some of these facts and figures won't mean a lot to some people, but I've tried to spread the criteria out a bit, so each model gets a chance to redeem some points if it's looking like it's going pretty low. Next up, we've got towing, GCM, and payload left over. The GWM is able to tow 3,000 kilograms. Its GCM is, so that's gross combination mass, so the absolute mass it can facilitate or accommodate is 5,545 kilograms. The curb weight is 2,100 kilograms. Again, for the lowest spec automatic 4x4 model. Take that GCM minus 2,100 kilograms for the curb weight and minus 3,000 kilograms for the maximum towing, and you've got 440 kilograms left over. So if you want to tow something that's 3,000 kilograms, you can only put 445 kilograms worth of things in the car, including passengers. So 4 passengers, and you'd be pushing that limit already without anything in the trailer, anything in the tray at the back. Moving on to the LDV, it also has a 3,000 kilogram towing capacity, braked towing, but the GCM is 6,050 kilograms. The curb weight is 2,125 kilograms. Take the GCM minus the curb weight and the max towing capacity, you're left over with 925 kilograms. The Musso is rated at 3.5 tons towing, so it's the only one here that's rated 3.5 tons. The gross combination mass is 6,380 kilograms, and the curb weight is 2,090 kilograms. The leftover mass is 790 kilograms. So for the scores, I'm giving the Musso 3 because it can tow 3.5 tons. So I've got to give it some points for that. But also with 790 kilograms left over, that's pretty good in terms of being able to take some passengers and some gear in the tray. And then leaving the LDV with 2 points because it does have the highest leftover mass available. But yeah, it's not able to tow 3.5 tons. And then 1 to the GWM because of that low 445 kilogram leftover mass. Next up, features. Now, I've just handpicked a few highlight features that I think are important for the modern driver. There's probably some other things that you might like, but I've just tried to handpick a bit of a nice spread of features. But I want to highlight the fact that all 3 come with a tilt-only steering column, according to Redbook. So that means you can't pull the steering wheel out closer to you. You can only move it up and down, which is quite annoying. I don't know why these budget end models do that. Why can't they just offer that reach adjustment as well? And that's for the base model 4x4s as well, remember. So the upper spec model might, in some of these, might actually offer more features or, yeah, that steering movement. So I'm just going to give a point for each feature. And the features are Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The number of speakers, so if it's got 4 speakers, it gets 4 points. Parking cameras, again, if it's got more than 1 parking camera, it gets more points. Tire pressure sensors, it either has it or it doesn't. And if it has a diff lock or a limited slip differential. Starting with the GWM, it gets 2 points for Apple and Android connectivity. 4 speakers only, so 4 points there. Parking cameras, it comes with rear and side cameras, so I'll give it 2 points for that. Doesn't come with a front camera, according to Redbook anyway, for the base model 4x4. Tire pressure sensors, yes, it comes with that, so it gets a point. And it comes with a diff lock, so it gets another point. Moving on to the LDV, it only comes with Apple CarPlay, so it doesn't have the Android Auto function, so it only gets 1 point there. But it does come with 6 speakers as standard. It also comes with 1 parking camera, so it's 1 point. Tire pressure sensors, yes, 1 point. But it doesn't have a diff lock in the standard base model form. Again, according to Redbook, I've tried to find out, if it's in a different area, but I can't see anything about a diff lock for the base model. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's getting no points for that. And then the Musso, it comes with Apple and Android, so that's 2 points. It comes with a 6-speaker stereo, so that's 6 points. It comes with just a rear view camera, so that's 1 point. It doesn't come with tire pressure sensors, according to Redbook, so that's 0 points. But it does come with a diff lock and a limited slip differential, actually, according to Redbook. But anyway, that's just 1 point. So the overall scores, GWM 10, LDV 9, Musso 10. Now these last 2 criteria are just based on my opinion. I have driven all 3, but I'm trying to be as professional as I can. Also keeping in mind I've driven all of the upper spec or more expensive utes as well, so I'm trying to gauge, just how far down they are, or even how close they get to the more expensive models. Starting with the interior presentation, and I'm just using fit and finish, so just how nice it feels, the plastics, and is it echoey inside, does it feel rattly and things like that. The ergonomics, does the seating position nice, and then the design, is it pretty nice to look at. I've given 3 to the Musso because it does present quite nicely. The materials are all nice, it's soft and it feels warm, it doesn't feel echoey, and yeah, the overall build quality does feel really good. Then I've given 2 to the GWM because it does come with leather look seats as standard, so that's good if you're working and always getting dirty and so on. Leather look seats, even though it's not real leather, but at least you can clean them really easily. It also comes with a nice big touchscreen. It's pretty easy to use, although it is a bit laggy. And then 1 to the LDV because it is pretty basic inside. The new Max Pro LDV is better. It comes with a big twin screen setup across the dash. But that's more expensive, and we're not looking at the upper spec models for this. And then lastly, the driving feel. Again, this is my opinion, but I'm using a couple of different key points. So suspension, ride quality, powertrain characteristics and noise, and then the general feel-good factor. So do you want to get up in the morning and drive it, or does it just feel like, you're just sitting in this capsule as you're going to or from work? Starting with the lowest score, 1 to the LDV, because the engine does sound the noisiest. It sounds pretty rough. It handles and steers a bit like a truck as well, like the steering has got some weird weight to it. Just doesn't feel nice compared with these others, and compared with certainly the higher or more expensive models out there. And it's just kind of the least desirable to drive, in my opinion, even though it does have 160 kilowatts, and it is pretty quick, as we saw. the way it does it all, it just doesn't seem the most appealing. Next up, I've given 2 to the GWM. It is pretty quiet and it feels okay to drive, but the front suspension is very soft and it can bottom out a bit. And it also, the steering wheel is kind of a bit awkward and it just doesn't feel absolutely natural in my opinion. So that leaves the Musso with 3 points. The driving position is nice. It feels good inside. The engine is quiet. The transmission seems to work the best out of the 3 as well. And it handles pretty good. It doesn't wobble around too much. There is a bit of body wobble, as we saw in the detailed review. The tray at the back wobbles around quite a bit. But in general, it feels more like an SUV than a big truck. And I think that's, yeah, it just feels nice. It doesn't feel tiresome to drive compared with the others. Neither of these are the best in my opinion. I think probably the Ford Ranger is the most nicest to drive. I'm not talking about reliability or anything like that. I'm just talking in terms of the driving feel. The Ranger, it just handles like an SUV or even better. Like it really just remains very flat. It's got the V6 available as well, so it's just effortless acceleration. I think that does feel the best, just in case you wanted to know what I thought was the absolute best in terms of driving feel. The final scores then. I literally haven't calculated these yet, so I'm just going to quickly add them all up. The Musso wins with 24 points, and then the GWM and LDV both tie for second place with 19 points. It's worth pointing out that all 3 come with a 7-year warranty with unlimited kilometers for the GWM and SsangYong, but only 200,000 kilometers for the LDV, so 7 years or 200,000 kilometers. And then servicing is required every 10,000 kilometers in the GWM, 15,000 kilometers in the LDV, and 15,000 kilometers in the SsangYong, or 12 months in all 3 cases. Those overall scores do reflect my personal opinion as well. But one thing I haven't factored in is the resale value. And I think that's pretty important, or it would be to me if I was buying a new vehicle. You might not care about it because you're about to purchase a nice shiny new car. But when it comes time to sell, you don't want to lose all your money. You want to have some money left over so you can buy a new car that's, perhaps even better, or, a higher spec model, or get some options or something like that. I haven't included the resale value in the points system that I've got going here. Because I think it might annoy a few people, and because it is a bit variable, so it's not an absolute definite. But you can look at websites like Redbook, and it will include what people have sold the vehicle for, and it gives you a bit of an idea of what you can get for resale. So I've just done some quick calculations. Going with a top spec model in 2021, so MY21 model, so it's about 3 years old. The top spec Musso was $37,490 back in 2021. Its resale average now is $23,525, which means it is held on to 62.7% of its value after 3 years. The LDV, same thing, top spec model, $38,937 when it was new. The resale average is $22,100, which means it is holding on to 56.7% of its new car price value. And then GWM, the top spec model was $43,490. The resale average now is $26,575, which means it is holding on to 61.1% of its value. So even there, the Musso comes out on top. I mean, only by 1 point something percent, but still it is coming out on top. And that's probably one of the reasons why I would choose the Musso as well, because I think you would get more of your money back compared with the others. Let me know what you think though. Are you considering buying either of these? And if you want me to do more of these comparisons, or sort of on paper style comparisons, let me know in the comments. If you're wondering what I would buy out of these 3, I would probably not buy any of them actually. I would probably just go for a lower spec D-Max or a Triton if I really wanted something in this kind of formula. Because the resale value is even better than those figures there. You can calculate these yourself using a number of websites. But yeah, get onto Redbook. You can see I'm selling. That's the private price guide. So that's what people are actually selling them for. Then you can just calculate the price when new and just see how much of the value is retained. Thanks for watching.